Beautiful day out, huh? Love it. All right. All set when you guys are.
There hasn't been a ton of time on pass with Josh and Curtis this offseason, and even Elijah's a newer person, Palmer, and things like that. Where do you feel the chemistry is at with that group, Josh, with these receivers heading into week one?
Yeah, I feel good about where their chemistry is. I think anytime until you start going through just live, you get the game action, you go through the live bullets, and being able to see, as I think all the chemistry is always just going to naturally grow throughout a season. One thing when you're going against in practice, but Josh and Elijah are the two new pieces, but everybody else, I think Josh has a good feel of, how they work, how they move, how to throw to them, and fortunately Elijah and Josh got a lot of reps with him in this off season, going back to even in OTA. So I feel really good about the group going into the season.
How has Keon continued to build on training camp and into the preseason?
Yeah, he's like I said all along, everything we've challenged him, just taking another step of a guy going into a second year, right? And he's got the right mindset and, the mentality that he's kind of going with, and not setting any expectations or anything, just as long as he just keeps doing what he's been doing, good things are going to happen.
Last year, at least externally, there was a lot of questions about what your offense was going to look like. With just the departures and the new personnel that you had, how much more comfortable do you feel going into this season? There's a couple new pieces, but it is largely the same core group that you guys had last year.
Yeah, I mean, I felt confident going into last season. I feel confident because of the guys that we have. We have a great coaching staff, the players that I get to work with. I believe in what we do here, and I believe in how Bean evaluates and bringing guys in to kind of fit what we're looking for. And so I don't think you're ever in a comfortable setting, right? You're always trying to find ways. You got to get better. I got to get better. Our offense has to get better. But my approach and my mindset, I kind of feel the exact same way going into the season. I'm excited. I'm ready to see these guys kind of go out there and do what they do.
From an offensive standpoint, what have you seen from this revamped defensive line and the way that they've been able to grow from rookie mini camp, but going against your unit?
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously there was a focus on improving that offensive line clearly, and it hasn't been fun going against them, right? We've added some a guy like Joey Bosa with his experience and getting to see him just live in action. I'm happy that he's on my team and not having to go against him anymore, at least especially in practice, and then seeing those young guys come in. I like the depth of that team or that unit, but again, it's all those things you're going to get a feel once you get out there. We've been going against each other every single day. We know how each other rushes, how each other blocks. Now it's about, hey, how can we apply it now going out on the field? No different for our offense line and some of our young guys like Jackson Hawes, right? He's been an absolute stud, in the run game for us now. How's it going to look like when he's out there? So I'm sure it's the same thing for the defensive line.
Speaking of Jackson Hawes, you guys ran jumbo more than any other team last year. With the addition of him to the mix, how does he factor into you guys deciding to go heavier up front?
Yeah, he was. Look, I know it's the tight end position, especially coming out of college, is one where it's a lot of just receiving tight ends, and so that was so exciting of watching Jackson Hawes because it might be, and I don't want to ever just put a guy into hey, he's a blocker. But he's the best blocking tight end we've evaluated. The way that he kind of comes out, and so it makes life a little easier for us. We hope in terms of at least game planning, knowing, we don't necessarily always have to put a jumbo out on the field, right? But he's been everything we've wanted. Again, he's a rookie, right? Just like all this, we're going to get a feel of the action as he goes out there. But Hawsey's been great. He's learning, and when you go and get to block Joey Bosa and Greg Russo every single day, you're only going to continue to grow. And excited about his growth, and excited to watch him go play football on Sunday.
What challenges do the Ravens defense present? Josh mentioned yesterday their entire secondary is filled with former picks.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a great defense for such a long time, right? I mean, there's not. It's, I know from Josh's standpoint, obviously in the pass game, but really at all levels of their defense, they don't really have a lot of weaknesses, right? And that's why we had the opportunity to play them in the playoffs last year, right? You don't get to the playoffs without having that, and obviously I think, and they've improved their unit, and so. They obviously drafted in D-line, drafted some in the secondary, and so there's not really a weakness to the defense. And as always, you're going to go into a season, you really can just go off of what they did the previous year, and you're going to have to figure out a way to adjust and adapt as it kind of goes. But it's going to be a great opportunity, a great challenge for us.
When it comes to Cook and Shakir signing extensions this offseason, how rewarding is it as a coach to watch those two not only just grow in their skill set, but grow as young men and leaders of this team?
Yeah, it's look, I obviously wasn't good playing football, and so I had to coach. But one of the greatest rewards is seeing the guys that you love, you care for, you want to do everything, seeing them have success. That's everything. And so seeing those guys, I've had an opportunity since I've been here. I saw them when they were rookies, and seeing their transformation and their growth, and then to be rewarded with the contract, and then to, I know you guys might necessarily see it all, but just see how it hasn't changed either of them. And I'm so grateful that I get to coach those guys. But I love that, nothing's kind of changed for them. And that's why they're a part of us. And that's why we're hoping that they're going to have another great year, just because they don't really change their process since the rookie year to now. It's pretty impressive.
How important is physicality to your approach to coaching offense?
Yeah, it's a lot of people always put physicality as a defense, but there's no reason your offense can't be a defensive philosophy. Just what I mean by that is people are always kind of saying, hey, offense has to be this. You want to be explosive, you want to be fast, and then defense, you're going to be the physical, but the physical group. But you don't have to always have that approach, right? We want to obviously put the ball down and have a physical game, and we know that the outfit that we're going against this weekend feels the exact same way, right? And so it's can't ask for a better opportunity to start the season. Great teams obviously off of last year. We're both going to have to earn it this year, but the physicality, that's usually how the game kind of goes, right? You don't look at the scoreboard, and usually the most physical team wins.
Where have you seen growth from Ray Davis in year two?
I think the biggest thing is just learning. I think I might have spoken on this a little bit, but just learning the schemes. And I know that sounds obvious, but really the nuances to all right, I know my assignment. I'm an offensive player. I know on this play the run is to the right. But now understanding the defense of how the defenses play. Okay, we're playing the Baltimore Ravens. They might play. Their D-line might play like this, different than last week, and how the offensive line is going to approach the blocks differently. And just him asking the questions and him understanding that element of all the things that look like, hey, we're just running the exact same play, but yet it's very different week to week. And so it's been cool to see him now. Last year was just trying to figure it out, where now it's slowed down kind of, and he was such a huge part for us last year, and so excited to see now him take another step year or two, just like Keon.
Has missed a lot of time over the past couple months now for him to be healthy and back out of practice. How is he looking, and what are you looking forward to him to start the season?
Yeah, look, I think the perk is I've obviously been with Curtis for a while, right? So I know the value that Curtis brings. You felt him in the playoffs last year, right? I didn't do a good enough job early in the season last year, getting him integrated into the offense, and so I got to make sure I do a better job this year. You feel his speed when he's out there. He makes plays, and the ball in his hands, good things happen, and so he's a guy that obviously unfortunate for the injuries that he had and how long he was out there, but when he's on the field, good things happen. And similar to John's question earlier, is we know him. Josh has chemistry with him, understands him, so it's a seamless transition. Hey, you come back in, it's hey, I know how this guy kind of runs the routes, and so I don't expect there to be a hiccup from that.
You've been in these positions before, but how would you describe your emotions right now as you get ready for a season? I'm sure it's probably a lot of different things.
Yeah, usually I'm speaking to you guys on Mondays, right? So it's right after a game, and you're just trying to figure it all out going into now it's hey, wrap up the last game and kind of move on to the next one. This one's a little different, right? Because you're in the middle of the game planning process, and you have so much tape on a previous opponent that their last game was on them. So you can the hardest thing right now is trying to make sure you don't do too much, right? And so balancing the emotion of trusting your guys and allowing them to do what they can do. But my brain never stops throughout the week until kind of Saturday we go home. Then I kind of take a reset, and then I always walk into a game confident, and not because of the game plan, but just because of the guys we got. I should feel that way, but in the middle of the week, man, it's you never feel like you're going to get it all in, and you're trying to figure out how you're finish third down today. We'll start red zone tonight, and trying to figure out how to score some touchdowns. So it's kind of like this all week. I'm not the best personality during the week, but we'll find a way. We'll be ready to go on Sunday night.
What's it like on game days as a play caller, week one, the excitement, the energy? Like, how do you kind of manage all that and get yourself kind of locked into that flow state on Sunday night?
Yeah, look, just like I ask our players, it's my job to, my biggest fear is not being prepared, and so sometimes that can be a negative, right? You can almost sometimes look at too much or try to overthink things, but there's nothing greater than being able to call plays, right? And I get to go out there and do what I love, with the guys that I love, and so I'm excited. I know you can see it with the great energy I'm bringing right now. But, I'll be excited. I'll be fired up. But then once you go up into the box, man, and you're as calm, focused, and you're trying to get into that flow state and try to fight and get in the rhythm of the game and how the pulse. But it's going to be an incredible environment, right? You're at home, Highmark. I mean, you got to embrace it, acknowledge it. It's the reality of what it is. But once the ball kicks off, everything kind of gets silenced right there, and we're just playing football, and I got to make sure I'm doing a good job of getting a feel and a pulse of the guys as the game's going, knowing that, hey, the first game there's going to be some natural, anxiety, anxiousness, and then eventually slow down and we can play some football.
Everybody has a different definition of flow state. A lot of players talk about being in that flow state. What's the flow state for you?
That's a great question. I'm still trying to figure it out. The flow state for me is when I feel like I'm the plays I'm calling, Josh is making them work. That's usually where it's at. No, I don't think you're ever in a flow in a game, just because, hey, you think you're in a rhythm and you're rolling, and just because a play, as soon as one drives over, you're kind of rolling for the next. So I think the biggest thing is just staying present, knowing that there's 60 minutes of a game. Like, to me, you're whether you're in a flow or not, there's so many peaks and valleys of a football game, and if you try to get too high, too low, you can start bad, but it's like, okay, we didn't start strong. Let's figure out what we got to do. And so to me, really, it's just making sure my flow is just not changing my process, and knowing that I got a long game. Until that clock strikes zero, man, they have an opportunity to win the game, and so do we. And so I'm still trying to figure out that flow. Awesome, thank you guys.
small crowd today. Nobody cares about defense.
We care very deeply. More people
I said earlier because it rained.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there were more for Joe.
No,
Oh, okay.
more now.
No, that makes sense. All right, here we go.
Bobby, especially against an opponent like the Ravens, how important are the guys who are filling in on scout teams to give you guys the looks that you need, and especially specific personnel, whether it be fullback or some of the heavy sets that they use?
Yeah, it's a challenge because it's hard to emulate. They're certainly talented. Got a lot of respect for them on offense and the talent that they have. So it's certainly difficult. We do the best we can, and our guys are certainly doing a good job.
What have you talked with the young guys about the challenge of facing a unique opponent? That they don't play the game like a lot of teams do.
Yeah, I think they got the message. I think the message was sent, and I'll keep that between us and the defense. Obviously, nothing needs to come out of that room, but they know what type of game it's going to be. They know how the opponent we're going against, and that's the number one thing we got to do is bring awareness to not only the opponent but the type of game it's going to be.
With Trey and CD dealing with injuries, just where is Dorian Strong? Where do you feel like he is going into this game, and what have you seen from him lately?
Dorian, the improvement over the last 2 weeks has been unbelievable. It really has. Credit to Jamal and Joe. It's funny. It's a confidence thing, right? You first get in the league, and you're trying to fit in. You're trying to see how you fit in. You're trying to learn new scheme. You're trying to learn all these things, and studious kid. I shouldn't say kid, young man. And not only is he talented, but the amount he's pouring into his craft is really cool to see.
You said he's improved. Is there specific things like you've seen from him?
Yeah, he's improved in football. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean he's just a lot of aspects of his game have improved. I mean, the talent was there. It was a little bit, if you want to say unstructured, but the attention to detail, some of the fundamentals that we use. I mean, it's come a long way, and it's really fun to watch. That's the cool stuff you see in coaching and why you coach.
With Dorian, I've been talking to some people who know him about how competitive he is. How do you see that showing?
Dorian Strong, absolutely
yeah.
competitive. I mean, you're not going to make it in this league if you're not competitive. So, I mean, it's, the competitive nature, to your point, is there to where he should down the road. There's going to be bumps. He's a rookie. And whenever his time comes to play, whenever that may be, it'll be, he'll have to deal with those. So.
What about Jamarcus? He's one start, but he's still an inexperienced young player who's been in the system, but hasn't been potentially in a situation.
It's funny. I was talking to someone the other day, and it's like, Jamarcus is the type of guy that he doesn't say a lot. I don't know if you guys have interviewed him, but he's not real talkative. Great personality, great dude, but he kind of just lays in the weeds, and then all of a sudden you're like, dang, man, that dude had a good practice, or you know what I mean? So it's funny because he just kind of lays in the weeds, and he does the little things right, and he's competitive like you were talking about, and it's cool to see his growth from, you guys know the story about how we acquired him, so really cool.
What is it like having all those? You mentioned there's some guys in that room that are quiet and a little more reserved, and then there's Tre'Davious, obviously.
Yeah.
What is that room like on a day-to-day basis with those, different personalities?
You talking the corners or the defense in general?
More corners, yeah.
The corners? Yeah, that's an interesting group. That's for sure. It's interesting. I would say the majority of them are pretty quiet, That's not to say anything other than, they put their head down and go to work, and it's pretty impressive. CB and Trey kind of lead that room, and the most important thing is that guys are themselves, but they're, the young guys are attaching themselves to those vets, which is what you want to see, because clearly Trey and Christian have done such a good job over their career so far that's who you want to attach yourself to.
As a defensive coordinator, what does it mean to you to have somebody like Christian who spends so much of his time after practice in the locker room, kind of pouring into some of these young
Christian
guys?
Benford.
Yeah.
Christian Benford overall is just unbelievable. It's his work ethic. It's the way he goes about his business. It's, you know, it's his consistency in everything he does. I can't tell you how many times we'll just be sitting in there watching practice, say it's training camp, and you just try to find stuff to critique on him, and you're like, the common thread with him is you just keep saying, God, CP just does everything right. He just does everything right, you know, and which I know all of us as coaches, myself, Joe Dana, and Jamiel, I mean, it's so good to be able to use him as an example, which I did for the young guys in front of the whole defense for training camp, because it's coach's dream to be able to do that.
You always hear, you know, what veterans can teach the younger guys, and specifically with Poyer and Phillips, right? You know,
Yep.
the practice squad. I know we don't exactly know what their roles look like, but what are the things that they can teach that maybe doesn't get enough credit or doesn't get talked about enough?
You know, I think the biggest thing is certainly there's going to be new guys in that room every year. We talk about it every year. This room's never going to look the same. You know, so when you look retrospectively, they were part of building this culture. So we have guys in the room that enforce our culture, but it's really beneficial to have two guys like that were really part of building that culture. And, you know, obviously they're going to help the younger guys. They're going to help the Cole Bishops of the world. They're going to help the Deion Walkers, the TJ Sanders. But to have them help reinforce that culture, and you know, Sean stresses preparation, and it's that preparation piece that's pivotal that they can help with.
How do you approach a matchup like this when you have such recent data, your own team against this team? How do you approach it, maybe not taking too much from that, but trying to create maybe what changes they're going to make? Yeah,
I mean, you know, certainly they're gonna tweak some things, and you know we're gonna try to forecast some things. We're gonna try to stay ahead of the curve. But like always, it doesn't matter who you play. You're gonna have to adjust. So we'll have to be ready to adjust, and you know certainly that's what we've done here in the past, and we'll continue to do that. It doesn't matter the opponent, but you know it's know who they are and be ready to adjust.
You guys had about a good first half against them in the playoff game as you could have, with Lamar making those mistakes, taking the ball away.
Yeah.
But is it emphasis point, like as good as you might play for 30 minutes, he's capable, they're capable of what they almost did in the second half?
Yeah, I mean they're really, really good. They're really good, and it's a constant. You gotta. They do a tremendous job. Obviously, you know, you look at their rankings last year on offense, and it's a lot of ones and twos. So, you know, we just got to go out, play our style of football, and you know, take care of what we can control, and have a great awareness of our opponent.
How do you feel about Cole Bishop and the way he came through the injuries and then getting on the field the past couple of weeks and getting up to speed?
Yeah, Cole Bishop's done an unbelievable job. I think you guys probably saw us throughout the preseason games how it just continued. Remember, the guy hadn't played any preseason games the year before. He gets thrown into the fire, and there's no excuses. There's none. And then you kind of see him get his feet wet after missing some time this year, and you know it was a continued trend upwards, and that's what we're looking for from all our players. So he did a nice job with that.
I know you don't want to talk about the health, but just Matt Milano in general, what have you seen from his play on the field?
Yeah, it's good to have Matt. It's good to have Matt. You can't ask that question. Can't ask that question. We don't talk about those things.
Specifically against Lamar, who's so good in the run and pass game, having Matt, like somebody that has all of that experience.
Now you're trying to rephrase questions. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
How important is it? I even asked TB about this, just having that experience against this particular opponent?
Yeah, I think Matt's experience is just he's I can remember back when he was a rookie a long time ago, and he was just out there running around, and certainly he was good at running around. But no, I mean I think his experience overall is going to help us no matter who we're playing. But specifically against this opponent, obviously we've played them a lot. They're a good team. We've won the division, so however those matchups look, we know how the NFL schedule's built. So he's got to play against them a lot, and I'm sure the familiarity with him is with him as it pertains to the Ravens certainly helps him because you kind of just know who's in front of you a little bit more than maybe the next guy that hasn't played against him as much.
Bobby, how hard is it taking Taron Johnson off of the field?
It's hard. It's
hard.
hard.
Such a weird.
It's hard. He's a good player, man. But what a selfless dude. Like, what a selfless dude, and that's what I'll say. I mean, he's going to do what's best for the team, and we got to keep Taron healthy, and certainly when it calls for him to come off the field, or depending on the game plan, he doesn't, he might make a little snide comment, but he is a selfless player. He's a true professional, and lucky to have him.
Do you feel like with some of the new pieces you have in that linebacker room, or just having some more guys healthy, you're better suited to play that type of defense if you need to?
What type of defense?
Like taking Taron off and putting an extra,
okay.
Just having now Shaq Thompson and then Matt being healthy.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to do. It doesn't really matter. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a condescending way. What I'm saying is, we're going to do what we feel is best for us, game plan wise, whatever that may be. Whatever that looks like, our guys are, they got to be willing and selfless to the point of this is what we feel is best this particular week as far as personnel goes throughout the game. That's the expectation here is it's bigger than one guy.
Bobby, what do you need to see just out of Deion Walker and TJ Sanders, two rookies thrown in a big spot in a big game? Like, how do you measure the success or what your expectation is, what you need to see from them Sunday?
Continual growth every day. That's it. Continual growth every day. They better be better today than they were yesterday, and that's it. So, that's what we talk about.
In what ways has the experience that Dorian Williams gained last year really paid off, throughout camp and as you guys are preparing?
Yeah, I think I see it most in his confidence in what we're doing. He's an interesting cat, but I feel his confidence. And certainly he's pretty violent. He's pretty physical. He's pretty explosive. So. You always kind of feel that, but no, his confidence has definitely grown.
Is that mixture why he's so interesting?
His personality is very interesting. You guys should spend more time with him.
Obviously an unfortunate injury for Dwayne Carter, but what were you seeing out of him prior to the injury?
Dwayne was very consistent, and certainly we'll miss him, until he can get back.
Hey, Bobby, you have a lot of young guys who are probably going to need to play. How much are you leaning on having so much experience in terms of your depth and having snaps in this defense against this specific opponent in the past?
I'm sorry, I don't. So are you saying like the
How much are you leaning on
those experience? Yeah. Certainly, that's what having experienced players within your system is certainly beneficial, and it only grows with the more experience that guys play together. So we're going to lean on that all the time. You go back to when it was, the OGs say here when we first started, and those guys that were here for an extended period of time. The more anybody could play together, I feel like this group's really coming together in that way.
Specifically, have you seen Jordan kind of attaching himself to Cole a little bit?
Jordan,
Poyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Poyer's a man. Going back to being selfless, like he's here to help. He in any way he can possibly do, and certainly helping young players is something people poured in. I have this conversation with all the guys that start to get a little longer in the tooth. It's like at some point it's not about necessarily you anymore. It's about what you pour into others. And he understands that and certainly willing to do that and wants to do that.
Who are some people in your life that most poured into you? I know an obvious example, but like
Yeah. I mean, Sean, a lot of my coaches, my wife, there's a lot. There's so many. Like, you're rounded by the people that have poured into you, and they're so teachers, coaches, my family, my mom, my dad, my wife, my kids. It's just too much to say, but pretty lucky.
A year ago, you were getting ready for your first role as a defensive coordinator. What have you learned in the last year, or what is something you learned that you didn't know in the last year going into your second season?
I wouldn't say it's what's the best way to say this? I think the best thing I learned was that you're always learning. You're always learning, and you're always there's always something you can do better. Whether that's calling a game, whether that's building a game plan, whether that's handling a certain situation in practice, that you're always learning. And you always got to evolve. And I say it all the time. That's the thing I respect most about Sean, is he's ever evolving. And that's certainly something that I knew. You think but until you're in the seat, you don't truly know. Cool. You got it. Jay, see, you don't care about me.